Keeping on the same topic, I had a few questions regarding targeted individuals. So this could be somebody who is gang stalked. This could be somebody that believes that they're being targeted with directed energy weapons or frequencies, targeting really of any kind. But those seem to be some of the main ones: the directed energy weapons, gang stalking. Um, I wanted to see if you had any insight on that or if you've dealt with any of that. I know a lot of people do. And I definitely believe that these things are real. So I'd love to hear your insights.
Yeah, I mean, directed energy weapon. I talk to a lot of people that are TIs, they call themselves TIs, targeted individuals, and they reach out to me a lot because it's super distressing, beyond your worst nightmare, y'all. Like, if you can, for a second, imagine that there is people who do their job is to destabilize somebody else. That's it. Fundamentally, the whole entire basis of this is a form of trauma-based mind control that's utilizing like exterior agents that are not detectable to the people that are around them. It's so disorienting because now this can happen for somebody that is a whistleblower, like you, Emma, host a lot of people that are whistleblowers. They'll experience a lot of gang stalking and they'll start to experience what it's like to become a targeted individuals at corporate size events. Even people that are trying to come out against a corporation, something that they saw unethical that was taking place. That's where a lot of people first get exposed to this. I'm not just necessarily talking about people that come from like occult families and covens and all this other stuff. This takes place on a military scale, on a political scale. It can take place for all kinds of varieties of reasons. And what a lot of that will look like, on one side of it, you have a directed energy side of this is like microwave weapons, people that are hitting people with ways of targeting just the body tissues, this layers underneath the skin to heat it up. Like there's something that's called the LRAD, which is like a long range acoustic device that's used by the military that heats up a layer of just basically the water under your skin just a little bit, and it can increase it over time, duration and intensity and all this stuff. It can do it through line of sight. There's others that can do it through walls. And when they start to do this stuff, it causes extreme burning, discomfort. And so this is one of the most common symptoms of people that are experiencing targeted individuals is they feel like they're being burned. They feel like they're literally like somebody is torturing them. And there's nobody in the room with them. This isn't like a demonic attack. This isn't like a necessarily like people coming in and doing rituals and sending spirits and dark powers and that kind of stuff. We're talking about like a technological side of this. And this is technology that's been available for decades. One of my let me share screen this with you because I have this. Um, this is a really good book. It's a PDF, you guys. You don't have to like buy. I know I talk about a lot of books, y'all. Books are amazing. Okay, I'm just saying. Like I'm super shockingly, obnoxiously biased to books. Okay, but let me just pull this one up and screen share with you.
Here.
Let's see here. It said you disabled it.
Oh,
It says you
interesting.
disabled it. You got to give me a chance, Emma. Give me a chance. I'll do fine.
Darn. Okay,
Only
I'll
show
give
good
you
stuff.
one chance. Let's see. Okay, try it now.
You get one chance. There we go.
Okay, here we go.
All right, this is a book. So even just one of the things I was researching earlier too, because I'm trying to help people, y'all. You know what I mean? This is like it sucks. It sucks. People are literally having their lives torn out of their flesh. They're like their entire life is totally destroyed. They're taking their sleep. If you take people's sleep long enough, after a couple of days of just not being able to sleep, every time you lay down to sleep, you feel like you're being burned alive. This is like army manuals that deal with it in the USSR. Like this has been going on a long time. This is the Hold on. Let me just show you guys the book here. It's on page 13. We'll get back down to it. This is called Monarch, the New Phoenix Program, which is edited by Marshall Thomas. And these are some of the issues that they go into. Chapter 1 with war crimes, Phoenix program, new Phoenix program, behavior modification. This is fundamentally, at the end of the day, all of this targeted individuals is dealing with behavior modifications. They're trying to cause people to change their current behavior, and that's through all of these tactics and these strategies. And so they go into, there's a few different chapters in here. Let's see, mind war. This is a big section on it. Patents and spinoffs. There you go, guys. Chapter 16 on existing laws dealing with targeted individuals. This is a really good resource for those of you guys that actually want to study this out more and find ways to be more effective at understanding. Street theater. This is where you like people when they go out of their house, they will literally have people where everybody on the street that they will bump into just mean mugs them, just looks at them as if they're a monster, just makes them feel like everyone is out to get you. And it's like it can totally freak you out, like totally freak you out if for the next 2 weeks, every time you went out the door, there were big, scary looking people that just looked at you as if you were the worst person ever. that's just one level of it, okay? But they go into here, like, in persons of interest in Army intelligence have been in charge of non-lethal microwave weapons development for the Army since 1980 and worked at government weapons labs like Los Alamos, where the atomic bomb was invented in secret. They have expressed interest in using non-lethal weapons to modify human behavior and neuter people. They have publicly advocated using electromagnetic weapons, EMW, to attack civilians in their homes. Some of them have been instrumental in moving the classified military weapons from the DoD, that's the Department of Defense, to the DOJ, that's the Department of Justice, and into the hands of local law enforcement and others' use against domestic enemies involved in domestic disturbances, which is vague enough to mean anyone. None of these intelligence officers and physicists are superstitious or believe in borderline ideas they promote. The superstitions like remote viewing are a smokescreen by Army intelligence to cover up the development and use of electromagnetic weapons. These men are experts in psychological warfare operations with 45 years of experience in the art of misdirection, subterfuge, and counterinsurgency warfare. He goes into a lot of the formations of these different technologies, their tools, who use them, the FBI, the CIA, and he goes into how a lot of this was used for mind control operations, how to modify people's behavior. So this is, like, on one side of it, just a really good resource, y'all. I have in my in the description of this below, I'll definitely have a link for this, and Emma, I'm sure, can drop this in hers as well, but well worth your time. One of my absolute favorites. I've been going through this book this book for a little while now because it's just full of so many different topics. They also go into CIA's creation of satanic cults. They do a great job with so many things on mind control and assassination teams and torture teams, all that stuff. It's a really fun and spicy book. But on one point of my experiences, the first time I ever experienced kind of becoming a targeted individual was also, like, I downloaded something called Tor, which is like the onion router, because I wanted to access certain websites because I knew there was caches of information that are hidden out there for people like me that go through secret training. Okay, there's ways that you can access stuff that you stashed away. You want to make like a cache of information in case you get blackmailed and people start coming after you, like what was happening to me. And so I needed to go there and access it without having any fingerprints to that. Well, once I downloaded the onion router, I started experiencing gang stalking. Like, literally, when I'd leave my house, there were people, like Chelsea and I would go to this grocery store that was near our house, and there was these guys dressed up in suits that looked like 6'4" linebackers with pistols, obvious pistols bulging under their jackets, who would just stand, and, like, anywhere we went, if they went to like the end of an aisle, they would just be standing there just watching us. Like, we went to check out, they'd just be standing there staring at us. And then there'd be one posted like near our car. And it was just this like presence of like, we're watching you. We're watching you. And it's that destabilizing feeling. Like in the cult and the coven neighborhood, like on the video, the first channel that's posted on my YouTube channel, y'all, is literally the documentary of secret plutonium weapon sites and child sacrifice. And that was dealing with the Jessica Ridgway case. We had an active coven that was taking place there in countryside neighborhood in Westminster, Colorado, that was slaughtering and sacrificing children and butchering children. And it was crazy infested place with, like, there's a lot of secret government military workers there because there's a Broomfield airport that's right there, a regional airport that does a lot of defense contract work for the United States government. And so there's all kinds of spy work that's happening there. And their families live in that neighborhood. So there was a nasty interconnected ring with military intelligence and people that were part of the occult and people that were part of the Church of Satan. It was just like a nasty little network in there. And so when we came out and were like coming out against this stuff, we started installing security cameras. We were watching these people in our neighborhood coming onto our property and dropping chunks of flesh, like they were like butchering animals, butchering people, and like dropping that stuff in our driveway and in the yard. And then they were putting USB thumb drives in the neighbors' mailboxes and stuff. And these people were buying and trafficking child porn. It was crazy, disgusting time to be in there. But you would have this omniscient, present feeling that, like, we know where you live. We're going to cause you pain. We're going to cause you suffering until you come back to us or you stop doing what you're doing. And it's that constant anguish. And if you destabilize people's sleep long enough, man, it makes people go crazy. It really does. And it makes it just compounds that effect. And so I do believe there is a very serious spiritual component that does also have to get addressed a lot of times, but that is just on the physical side of it, it's a hell. It's an absolute living nightmare that so many people deal with. The guy I did an interview with, that's called the House of Dragons, Fire Medic 8, FM8. He deals with a lot of that and helps a lot of folks in dealing with that, talking about it, because he's experienced a lot of that. He was a whistleblower against all the death cult stuff that was going on back during the lockdown period.
Oh my goodness. It's really fascinating the ways that have been found and discovered and utilized to torture people, and I think the TI, targeted individual side of things, it's sort of a less talked about aspect of this abusive system. I think because unlike, say, physical abuse, sexual abuse, you can sort of point a finger and say this person did it. Where with electronic abuse, there's really not like, there's not an abuser that you can point a finger at. You don't, it's like an invisible abuse, that the person experiencing it suffers from, but other people, it's hard to validate that with other people. So you speaking on behalf of that really does validate it. There's not, I think the TI community too, there's a lot of them suffering right now. Not a lot of TIs are out there actively doing podcasts too. So I think it's awesome that you're able to answer that. I had a lot of people, reach out and want to know your opinion on that. Sort of keeping on this topic again, I have another question regarding speaking out, which says, I would like to know any advice he has about survivors going public. Would Nathan have done anything differently when he came out with his testimony? I like that question.
Man, I would have tried to get as much evidence as I could while I was still in. I would have tried to stay a double agent a little longer, but I was pretty scattered. I was struggling. It's really hard to, like, when you first come out, you first start speaking, there's so much you have like program deniers inside your system. If you're programmed multiple, like, you've got parts of you that are literally only job is to deny everything that happens. And you'll see this happen with survivors when they come out and they'll start sharing their testimony, and then unfortunately their handlers or somebody else triggers them, and then they come out and they just deny everything and disappear. It's really gross, but that's literally deniers. Like, some of you are wrestling with denial right now, and you're like, you might be seeing counselors talking about this stuff for months or years, and then all of a sudden you're like, there's no way. And you're like, it's okay. There is a massive counterinsurgency inside most people to not go out and be public. There is like a very orchestrated, intentional design to keep the secrets. And that is fundamentally, at the end of the day, why your testimony is so powerful, because your testimony supersedes their secrecy. And that is there. You cannot build a house in secrets. You can try at the end of the day, but it's not a house. It's a prison cell. Like, that's why prisons exist, because there's secrecy, there's compartmentalization, and that's the core structure of program multiples is secrecy. Is like, you're not allowed to know this information. You're on a need to know basis. But the truth is, your testimony and sharing that is your weapon. Like, it really is. I'm a huge advocate of people coming out and speaking their stories, coming out and sharing their testimonies. Like, I have people that reach out to me and they'll write me very detailed experiences of their testimonies, and it's very painful to read it. It's very hard to read it, but at the same time, I'm a massive advocate of that, and I'm very welcome to it. But it's brutal for me to go through that stuff. However, I'll write back to them. I'll try to write back to them as much as I can. And a lot of them never respond. A lot of them just wanted to get it out there. Like, I know that's something you shared with me earlier, Emma. Sometimes they just want to share it. They don't want it shared publicly necessarily. They just want it out there. And that's like a very powerful and important part of releasing a lot of the bondage of shame, a bondage of like secrecy, is like you're literally getting outside that door that has been so deliberately placed there, this kind of demonic, dark energy that's held your mouth closed, that's muzzled you for so long. But if I could give any advice about people, is being really deliberate, that when you do come out, that you understand that, yes, you're going to suffer persecution likely because of that. You're going to suffer some levels of reprisals because of that, but it's a good thing. Like the points we were just talking about earlier, like, that may be exactly what you all experience. Maybe you don't. Maybe some of you guys are able to speak out without that, but understand that, like, it's going to toughen you up. It's going to make you a warrior on the battlefield of this information war. Awareness is a key fundamental component of this, because you don't know how many other people who saw or witnessed or are around you and experienced a lot of what you experienced, and there's nobody else on the face of the earth that they could ever relate to or understand that has a testimony or a lifestyle that they went through that you do. And when you release that, when you share that out, man, it cuts people, the bindings off of people. It literally unlocks the doors of the bindings of shame. It frees them from the bitterness. It frees them from the self-hatred. Like, I can tell you, it's so empowering to me when I see other men come out and talk about sexual abuse. Like, it really is. It really is. You're denying shame its power over you. Like, if I could go back and do anything differently, I don't know. It's brutal. It's brutal to come out here in the public arena. It's brutal, absolutely brutal. But because I've been in there, I mean, I've been speaking out for 6 years now. It's beautiful. It's beautiful because I get to see the fruit of it. I get to see that like it's worth it. There's people who have written me, their lives are completely different. Like they're free, or their children are protected. Like it broke the cycle of abuse for a lot of people. And I'm alive. They're alive. And as long as you have your life, as long as you have your voice, like use it. Don't let them win by your silence. Because honestly, silence is the thing that fuels their kingdom so powerfully. But if you break that silence, if you come out and you speak the truth, if you speak the secrets, there is life waiting for you. Like there's life in the truth. If you lay your foundation in truth, it is absolutely incorruptible. That's the rock we're supposed to build our house on. That's the rock we're supposed to build our lives on. And when you do that, you break that cycle, and you give another generation the opportunity to know that, you know what, there's a great cloud of witnesses. There's these faithful people out here who can validate and verify what it is you've gone through, what you've been through. And you know what? They can't kill us all. Fundamentally, they can't. We're multiplying every day. Like the truth is always more infectious than the lies.
Love that. Always so inspirational when, you get on these topics. I love that you share from your heart, Nathan. I know that it inspires a lot of people. And these are really good questions. These are, legit concerns, like being nervous about doing something, So for people on the other side to hear that you were also nervous and that it's still hard for you, helps people feel not alone in their own suffering, because, that it is a real thing to discern. It's something to consider, but also seeing on the other side, the safety that it provides, that there are good things potentially that can also come from using your voice and putting yourself out there. Even just if one person hears it and their life has changed, like how you were saying, Nathan, all the outreach that you get from people who are so grateful, myself included, that you put this content out and that you put yourself out there knowing what you're risking to educate people. And again, I know everybody's in a different space in their journey, but for people who are speaking out, that's one of the big things I also hear is it creates a barrier of safety too, because now people can see you, they have eyes on you. It's not going to be as easy for people to mess with you, at least not without, a fight going down on the other side. So I appreciate you answering that and, helping people who are in that space ready to go. They're just hesitating because it's really nervous, and nerve-wracking and fearful. And it's beautiful to see all the roses that have bloomed from this. You planted seeds and planted a garden, and I'm sure it was really, especially really hard at first. And I feel like more than ever now, these seeds are blooming in people's minds, and so many more people are being exposed to this. And then there's channels out like yours that are educating people on it, where a decade ago it was a whole different story. So happy, Nathan, that you decided to do this. And, everybody who has come on podcasts like mine and who are speaking out, and if you're not, to just know that, it's possible for you if you keep on the journey and, take the advice of people that have come before you and done it. I had another great question that I want to segue into regarding speaking out, and somebody saying they're wondering how you avoid questioning in legal issues with the crimes that you've witnessed and admitted participating in when you're speaking out.
Well, nobody's asked, I don't know that I've necessarily done anything to try to avoid it. I've literally been like an open book. I'm like screaming from the mountains. So I haven't tried to avoid any aspect of it. I've welcomed it. I've sat down and talked to some of the best FBI interrogators, people that are consultants for the FBI that work with state police and interview and interrogate big, bad, scary murderer people, people that do polygraph tests, and people that have sat down and examined me for my testimony and my story. They weren't doing that in a official capacity, you know what I mean? But they were grilling me like crazy. So I've had some of that stuff happen. I've talked with U.S. Marshals. I've talked with police officers. I've had a lot of cops show up at my door because I lived in an RV. That was not the way to get away from cops. I learned that the hard way. I had more encounters with police knocking on my door in the RV than I ever did in my life. So that gave me that used to be, I'll just say it, that used to be a huge fear of mine, like a huge, pure mind. I got to go back in my head just for a second here, because it's easier for me to think about all this stuff from the lens of which like I'm at now. I'm like years and years and years down. I used to be terrified that I was going to just wake up one day and open the door and there was just going to be SWAT, FBI, everyone, just all of them, just surrounding the house, that kind of feeling. And one time, but I really believe you got to kill your fears, y'all, because like you have to, like, you're going to get what you fear. Like, it's a real thing. Like, you literally get what you fear. It's not like some kind of like ethereal reality. You are going to get what you fear most, 100%. Chelsea one time was like, we moved onto this property and they had a trampoline, and Naomi was like 3 and Jubilee was like 8 months. And she literally looked at me and was like, wouldn't it be the worst thing ever if Naomi broke her arm jumping on that trampoline and we have to go to the hospital during COVID? Would that just be like the worst thing that could ever happen? What do you think happened? Like a week later, Naomi breaks her arm. It's like Shabbat. We're like chilling. Naomi breaks her arm trying to do a backflip as a 3-year-old on the trampoline. And where we end up? You stinking right. We're in the ER and COVID and all that crap. You're like, no way, no way. You betcha. You get what you fear. It's like a serious thing. That's why, like, you're told like 370 times in the scriptures, like, don't fear, don't fear, don't fear, don't fear, don't fear. I have a video that's called Al Tira, which is the way you say it in Hebrew. It's like, do not fear, do not be afraid. People, be courageous. Why is he saying that all the time? Because he knows us. And he knows the entire like fuel source for the kingdom of darkness is fear, phobos. It's like this goddess that would break loose on the battlefield, the gods of war. And you're like, dread. Like, you get it. Like, it's literally like when you're in a war, it's all it takes. It's all it takes. It's like these minutia of like this, it's called a hesitancy, make somebody stutter step and make somebody like hesitate for a second, that like panic. They're like, if you take a second gulp of air instead of pressing the trigger at the right time, you miss your shot and they make theirs. Like the game of life is a game of millimeters. I tell this people all the time. Like, I love knives because they're precision instruments. Like a bullet is not as effective to me because I'm not as accurate with it. Whereas a knife in my hand, I know where it's going. Like, I know its actual path. Whereas a bullet, when it enters a body, is not predictable. I don't care how many times you've shot something as a target, a static target. People are not static targets. Like, they're very peculiar inside. And when you start going in there with something that's going at a high speed or a somewhat low speed, things do weird stuff. It's really strange what happens when a bullet goes inside somebody. And you can shoot somebody a lot of times and they don't die. And it's a freaky, frustrating thing. It's weird, but you get what you fear. Like, if you have these fears of people coming around you and surrounding your house and doing all this horrible stuff to you, or you getting thrown in prison, or you're getting dragged into the courts, like, you're going to get that stuff. You really are. But if you fear him, like I fear at the end of the day having to give an account for my life. I do. I have to give an account for what I did with what I was entrusted with. And like, he gave me a lot of talents. He did. He entrusted me with a mind that's like, it's important to use my mind for good. I could use it for great evil. I could build a serious empire with this mind of mine. I could do a lot of other stuff with this brain. I could merchandise a lot of people, and I could make a lot of money with this mind. Or I could try to literally wage a war for the souls of mankind and try to set the captives free. And so, like, I intentionally put my mind on that, and I don't try to seek out those other fears of men. And like, we left a farm that we were staying on down in Danny's, at this farm down in Florida, and I had recorded my full audiobook and posted that. There was like not a lot of views and traction for me at the time, but I still was terrified. I still was really scared about stuff. Anyways, we woke up one morning and I got a big thumping knock outside our door, and we had stayed at this campground, and I had police all around my vehicle, my RV, and I was like, oh my gosh, here it is. Here it is, like, it's going down. And they like asked me to step out, and they asked me if anybody stole anything, because somebody had broken in to all of these RVs around us. And that night, in the middle of the night, Chelsea had been woken up in a dead sleep, feeling like something was stalking in the darkness. Like there was something out there, and she felt like it was like thievery, like something was stealing. And so she prayed. She literally prayed, like stopped and prayed right then, and to protect our things, protect our home, that nothing would happen to our home, that they would leave us alone. And literally, we're the only one that didn't get broken into. Everybody around us in that campground got broken into. And it was just like, we have seen literally the Father deliver us from our fears. We have seen him literally send dreams and visions to us to like help us get away from places or circumstances and things. We have seen so many miracles happen over these last few years that like, I don't fear that at the end of the day. I don't fear questioning. I don't fear these things, because at the end of the day, I have committed myself to tell the truth, the absolute truth, and nothing but the truth at any time, as far as it is unto me. Because if I do that, it allows me the ability to understand that like, I'm building my foundations on this. My family built theirs on lies and deception and death. Like, that's not going to hold up in the court of law. It's really not. Even as corrupt and as absolutely broken as the systems are, that's not the courthouse I'm talking about, you guys. I'm talking about the white throne of judgment. I'm talking about like the day when you have to actually give accountability to the judge of all the earth. Like that's the court that we are all going to be brought into. And I have to give an account there. And so I put my faith in him and I trust him that he can defend me and protect me however he sees fit. You know, and if that comes to trial and you have to go through discovery and you have to go through litigation, well, then you get access to evidence, you guys, that puts this stuff on a validity that they don't want. I think fundamentally, they don't want to validate survivors at all. They really don't. They don't want to give them their opportunities to contend with them because you're going to have to bring these people who are perverts in front of the masses of people, and public records of perverts is not their goal, you guys. They want to silence this stuff. Secrecy is their game. And so as long as they can maintain that ruse, they're going to keep going on that agenda as long as they can.
Love that answer. And that's really true, you know, like what abuser wants to take somebody to court who's accusing them of the crimes that they did, you know, then they have to prove it wrong. So there is definitely a lot that goes into that. I appreciate you answering that because that's probably another thing people fear, you know, whenever they're going to speak out is that exact thing of, you know, people coming after them for what they're saying. And I also know that that's a reason why a lot of guests don't give real names, you know, and also, you know, privacy and safety and things like that of involved innocents. But I really appreciate you answering that, Nathan. I love